It's a story we've become all too familiar with. A priest molests a young member of his congregation, someone who looks up to him for his position in the church and his association with God. And then for decades, even as rumors swirl and accusations are made, the Catholic Church does nothing to protect the victim. This time the offender is Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who is suspected of sexually assaulting several of his congregants beginning in the 1980s, and despite reports to his superiors, including Pope Francis's predecessor, as Pope Benedict XVI, McCarrick not only kept serving, but moved up in the ranks, the way other church abusers were moved around, becoming the Archbishop of Newark and then the Archbishop of Washington, before becoming a cardinal in 2001. And taking on a role in addressing the church abuse crisis itself. Here he is on Meet the Press in 2004.
Do you believe there's a special place in hell for men who represent Christ on earth and abuse their flock?
There is certainly a special, terrible judgment on someone who would abuse the trust that a priest must have, that a priest does have.
McCarrick made those comments the same year he settled for tens of thousands of dollars with adult men who accused him of assaulting them as they trained to become priests. But this year, in the era of Me Too, two more victims came forward, including a man who was 16 years old, a minor, when he says McCarrick, under the guise of measuring his inseam, unzipped his pants and sexually assaulted him. After those reports surfaced, Pope Francis removed him from the ministry, accepted his resignation, and opened an investigation into the disgraced cardinal's behavior. And in a first for the Vatican, the Pope sentenced McCarrick to a life of prayer and penance even before the investigation ended, a step likely due more to the depths of the Church's complicity in McCarrick's abuse rather than a true embrace of reform. In the wake of McCarrick's fall from grace, a half-dozen nuns have spoken out with their own claims of abuse at the hands of Catholic priests. This apparent progress comes just months after the Church's last abuse scandal, during which Pope Francis failed dramatically to keep his promise of zero tolerance for abusers in the clergy, dragging his feet until he finally dealt with a bishop in Chile who ignored and at times watched as priests abused young boys. And though the Archbishop here in Boston, Cardinal Sean O'Malley, has called for accountability in the wake of the McCarrick revelations, saying that, quote, failure to take meaningful actions will threaten and endanger the already weakened moral authority of the Church, even he has work to do. He heads up the Vatican's Commission for the Protection of Minors, a group that's done absolutely nothing to protect minors, as evidenced by the resignation of the panel's last remaining survivor, Marie Collins, over what she called a shameful lack of cooperation from some within the Vatican bureaucracy. O'Malley's warning and the Pope's McCarrick actions are important, but as usual, they come far too late. It's long past time for Catholics and non-Catholics to demand more.